All right, let's talk to our pal, John Keim, ESPN.com reporter, covers the Commanders. And, of course, John, we're going to have to start with the Terry situation. John, how do you read what happened yesterday at Eastern Motors, where he spoke for a while to reporters?
Okay, so we knew that there was frustration because, obviously there hasn't been any movement for a little while. So you knew there was frustration. He wants to stay here. There's no trade demands or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that would accomplish a whole lot, to be honest. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of teams would love a Terry McLaurin. The hard part is, what would you trade and then sign him for? That's a lot. And I don't see this team wanting to do that because they think they can go somewhere, and you're giving up, your second best offensive player. It doesn't help you get there. So draft picks don't help you get, you know what I mean? So, and TJ Watt's not going to be traded for him. So, but he made it clear he wants to be here. That. And I think his value is high here because of how much this community embraces him, but conversely, how much this team needs him. But the other part was there were multiple references to, who he is, what he's gone through here, a stand-up guy during very difficult times. And part of me believes that that's part of what's going on here, that he's been a stalwart for this franchise, again, through the Snyder years, when it was very tough. And he was the guy who would get asked all these questions, but he always just he was very professional, went out and played well.
He was kind of like the spokesperson of the team.
He was a spokesperson. He was the face, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
and he was always positive.
Yes.
Always positive. And so do you feel like you should be rewarded for that? But on the other side, you're going to have, and he brought up the age, and he talked a little bit about that, where it's like, can't you go on a case-by-case basis, because 30 coming up here is definitely this, and it's why I always felt this would be a tricky one, because they look at it like, you're going to be 30, like we want to get paid, not just because you're 30, but when the contract going up, you're going to be 33, 34. That's the other part, right? So you have a side here who was not here during the turbulent years. It's gotten better because of them. So you know what I mean? And so that's why there's just a lot of good points, I think, on each side. And but they seem to be at times in conflict with one another with it. So it's not like, I can tell you that this team wants him back. I think they understand how good he is and what he means to the offense. But and Terry talked a lot about wanting to be valued. And then if you see the hard part throughout all of this is, who is the direct comp for him? Just like you're trying to buy a house on a street, you always look at the comps. Who is that direct comp? Like Garrett Wilson signed a deal. Well, Garrett Wilson's only going to turn 25 soon. I think next week he turns 25. That's a hard comp because of that, right?
Yeah, it's a good point, John, because you look at the ages of guys like Garrett Wilson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who, at 24, he signed his deal, and he's making a tick over $30 million AAV. Right. So, that's going to be a tough bridge the gap for his agent.
For sure. But then you look at a guy like T. Higgins, who's 28.75, something around that point, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be more than that, because Terry's the number one guy here.
Yep.
And so it's got to be, DK Metcalf has a deal somewhat similar to Wilson's, not the same guaranteed money. So, which is always the key. The guaranteed money is the key. The average annual whatever is like cosmetics, but it's always the guaranteed money. So, but DK was in the same draft class. The production is similar, and last couple of years it's been better for Terry. But he's 2 years younger. So that's where that age comes into play. And then you can't look at Mike Evans, because he signed his when he was around, I think he was 30, going to turn 31, but he had been in the league for 10 years.
Right.
And, and he had kind of leveled off a little bit, whereas, but his deal ultimately was worth like, $42 million over 2 years. Like that's not a starting point. Here's the other thing. The starting point then becomes if let's say he plays under this contract and then you want to keep him, you franchise him. Well, that'll be like I think I had Joe Corey on my
30.5 or something like that.
30.5, right. So like if you're his side, it's like, well, is that if this is how it could play out, let's make that the starting point. So, like I said, it's just both sides want to be in business with one another, but it's getting to that right place. And you can't, I know everybody's like, just pay him. Well, you don't operate where you just give someone whatever they want, because it still has to make sense for you.
They're gonna lose the PR war on this though. If they go hard, they're really gonna lose it.